right, friends, it's that time again. It's Q&A time, baby. It's been a while since I've done a Q&A, and these, quite frankly, are some of my very favorite videos to film. Why, you ask? You didn't ask. It's because I get to just sit down and talk to you guys, and I find that to be quite fun. These are never quick. They are not meant to be. This is the kind of video that you need to settle in for. So grab yourself a beverage of choice and join me. Let's do a little Q&A, shall we? We shall. Okay. The first question is from Jess. These all came from Instagram, by the way. This is how I do Q&As, is that, I don't have a place to put my coffee. I might regret setting that coffee down on this white fur. What am I if not known for making bad choices? I put up a little question box on Instagram stories. That's pretty much how I always get questions for these Q&As because it's the easiest way and they all come like in a little condensed spot. Okay, it's easy. All right. So Jess said, "Are you doing okay?" And I just wanted to answer this question first because I thought it was so kind and just something that I was like, oh, as you scroll through all the questions and then somebody's like, "Are you okay? Are you doing okay?" You're like, now that you ask, actually. No, I'm just kidding. I am. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I have followed through with my commitments to make some changes in my life, to make some changes in my in my work-life balance and all of that. And it's something that I really feel like in the last year, I have stretched and grown as a person. I have stresses like everybody else. There's always things that are stressful. They're situational. But I have learned that happiness and joy is not a destination. It is the journey. That's a famous quote from somebody much smarter than I am, but that's not exactly how he worded it. But it's true. Happiness isn't something you're striving for. I'm not like trying to be happy. I'm not in the pursuit of happiness. Happiness and joy is a choice that I make for myself every single day. So yes, I'm good. What a long-winded way to answer that question. Pammy D, do you and CR do any projects together? Pammy, we do. We definitely, excuse me, we do. But when you have 8 children, a lot of times it is easier to let one person do something while the other one is on kid duty and then swap vice versa. So it really depends, and it really also depends on what skills are required for said job. There are some jobs that I don't have either the muscle or the skill for that I will have my husband. So like I'll do part of the project and then he'll come in and do the parts that I can't do. You know, I've got that little bit of like in me that's like, can't do, then I will do it kind of a thing. But I'm learning to squash that and not be so prideful about that kind of stuff and get help where and when I need it. And also sometimes on things I just don't feel like doing. Carson's Drive asks, are you still intermittent fasting? Yes, sort of. I'm having a really tough time getting back to clean fasting. That is what I need to do. We've got the home gym that we've been trying to pick up using again. I recently did like a DNA testing thing that it was a sponsorship on my other channel, but I was really excited to do it because, and this isn't sponsored, I'm just answering this question, because it gives you all these reports and it looks at things like basically your genetic predisposition for certain things. So it would look at like what types of workouts and stuff would be good for you, dietary things, and of course, sadly, but not surprisingly, my best diet would be a low carb and low sugar diet, 2 of my very favorite things in the entire world. I'm pretty sad about that. But as far as exercise, it had said on there that I needed to focus on more like power exercise, like strength and power things, like explosive power, strength, like a high weight, low repetition type exercises, which is not typically, essentially what it was saying is all the ways that girls work out, typically the things that maybe this is just my like 80s brain of like aerobics and stuff, but like that's actually not the kind of stuff that is best for my body. I should probably be doing, honestly, like CrossFit type stuff, though I have no intention of doing that. Not like going to a CrossFit gym or anything like that, but we've got all the equipment here. So that's what I'm trying to do is do some like weightlifting things and see if I can get myself in better shape that way. But also because I am still doing intermittent fasting, I'm just not clean fasting right now. And that's just what works for me best to control weight, but I can't really lose weight unless I do clean fasting. I hope that breakdown makes sense. People get real touchy when you start talking about weight and weight loss and all that kind of stuff, or like diets. So I'm just gonna put it out there. Take it don't take it, throw it back, whatever. But that's what works for me and what doesn't. Steph said, I don't like reading out loud to my kids. Is that bad? I'm a homeschool mom. No, it's not bad. It really is such a great way for learning and for enjoying a story, to have it read to you. Again, most people, it's why a lot of us like audiobooks. And so it's a great way to have like one book that the whole family can be going through and reading at the same time, essentially, because it's being read out loud. So you don't like reading out loud, which is fine. Is there another one of your kids that's older that could do some of the read alouds, take over that part, or your spouse, or just switching to like audiobooks for some of the read alouds? I mean, listen, I love read alouds, and I always encourage them, because I do think it's a great way for parents who are like stressed, and when you go through certain seasons with homeschooling and you need a break from certain things, read alouds is just such a great way to really still be engaging your kids, and it's so good for them that I'm always like a proponent of it, but that doesn't mean it's a requirement, okay? It's not a requirement. It's the beauty of homeschooling, is you kind of get to make a lot of choices for yourself. Oh, Allie says, roll call for the horses, please. I forget who's. It's because it doesn't change a lot, but it has changed a lot since we got here, because we have some of my parents' horses. They've sold some of those horses. So as far as who's left in this upper pasture, we have Bo and Flash that are my parents' old boys, as we call them. Bo just turned 25 in April. And I don't know how old Flash is, but he's got some injuries, so he can't be ridden. He's a pasture ornament, as they're called. And then in that same pasture, we also have the two minis. So Ellie and Peaches. Ellie is the mom. Peaches is the baby that is now basically bigger than the mom. And then the girls, Kennedy and Shelby, we bought Cooper from my parents. So Cooper was their horse. We bought him, but he got injured. Well, he didn't get injured. He has an injury issue that prevents us now from really being able to ride him at more than just a walk. So he's still here, but he only gets ridden very lightly by the kids, by the older kids. And then Kennedy got her horse Raven, who is the gray looking horse. That's Kennedy's horse Raven. She's a mare. And then Shelby's horse Vince. His name is Vincent, after Vincent van Gogh, because he's a paint horse. Vince is Shelby's horse. And then also in that pasture right now is still Mia. So Mia is one of my parents' horses that was a nurse mare foal that they have raised. And she's been going to training, and then there's maybe some vet issues. So yeah, she's still here. I'm not sure yet where she's going, what's happening, if she's staying, going, what's happening with her. That there's people who really want her, but she needs to get through certain training things first. So that's who's here right now. Hopefully I'm not forgetting anybody. I lost track with the cat situation. Will there be a new second one? No, there won't. Mostly because, well, finding a Siberian cat. So we got 2 cats at the end of 2021. Got Siberian cats because my husband's allergic to cats. One of my daughters is allergic to cats. I have developed a cat allergy, which I did not used to have. How weird is that? I've developed a lot of new and odd allergies since we moved to South Carolina, or at least those allergies have been exposed, if you will. I don't really know how all that works. But anyway, so Siberian cats are hypoallergenic. So they're really the only cat that is hypoallergenic. Hairless cats are not, anything like that. So for whatever reason, this one kind of cat is hypoallergenic. So that also means that they come with a price tag, and they're not easy to find. And there's also a lot of scams out there related to finding a Siberian cat. So we always love getting animals 2 at a time, especially if they are small, if they're young, because then they have each other. And especially when you're talking about a kitten wanting to play like a kitten, we love that they can have each other to do that with and not scratch us to pieces. However, once they're full grown, cats are very solitary type, and they don't need another cat around. In fact, they barely tolerate the humans, except for Goose. He really does love us. He's a special cat. He's a very special cat. So Maverick passed away a few months ago from a freak urinary tract thing that just went from bad to worse. He had surgery, we got him treatment, all of this stuff. We spent a small fortune, and then we thought he was doing better, and we just walked in and he was dead on the floor. So yeah, we won't be getting another cat replacing. That sounds so terrible, but we won't be getting another Siberian cat anytime soon. Now, our barn cat that came from my parents' barn, she was very old. She was their mouse catcher and all of that at their old barn. She came here and she was on her way out the door. She was not doing well. She ended up passing away a couple months ago as well. We've not replaced her yet. Obviously, that cat does not live inside our house, so we don't need those to be like a barn cat to be a Siberian or hypoallergenic cat. So it's the time of year right now where everybody's finding kittens. I see it all over Facebook, especially other like Homestead and Farm. At some point in the next month or so, we will probably try to snag a couple of already outside barn cats that have been, you know, born outside, raised outside by their mom and kind of taught the ropes of being a barn cat. We're hoping to snag a couple of those locally from somebody who's got them roaming around their barn instead of them taking them to the pound or to animal control, that kind of thing. So I don't know if that was a branch that just fell, but I just saw it out of the corner of my eye and it looks like a body falling. I hope it was a branch. Oh, if you could go back to college, what would you study? What wouldn't I study? If I could go back to college right now, I would definitely study something like evolutionary psychology, is something along those lines, something with psychology and biology mixed together, understanding our brains and how they operate, how we think about things. I'm forever fascinated by that, by our decisions and how those have evolved over time based on our needs as human beings. And sometimes those, no matter how much we change and how much culture changes and society changes, we still have these like built-in hardwires to want certain things or try to get certain things or feel a certain way about people or, you know, whatever. I find it so incredibly fascinating, and especially how it pertains to male-female dynamics, to the dating world even. And I think my interest in this is born out of the fact that I have 8 children who are going to be entering this dating world and looking for a spouse and hopefully somebody to marry and have a family with and stuff. And they're entering this world where everything has changed exponentially. And it doesn't even resemble the ways in which we used to meet and acquire a mate. It looks totally different. And we're like, our daughters are being sold all these lies about how they should be or need to be or what they should want and shouldn't want. Men are being sold all these lies about women and, you know, how to treat them, and, you know, they're just gold diggers, and like there's just all of these crazy narratives, and add social media to that, where it's kind of given this platform for people to build these little subcultures of these beliefs that can then become just very pervasive in our like standard culture. So, or like, you know, modern society and the way that we see things and think about things. So as a mother, I am fascinated. As a human, I am fascinated. So that's the kind of stuff that I think that I would study and want to like research and know more about. Do you want to plan my wedding? Stress is real. Oh, that sounds so fun. You know, it's funny that you say that, because one of the jobs that I used to really want to do was be a wedding planner. And I had a friend that had started a wedding planning company, and it was like right when Kennedy was born, and she basically like hired, like I was going to come be an intern and then hopefully be able to work for her. But I couldn't bring myself to be away from my baby. I just couldn't do it. So I didn't end up going down that road. But yeah, that was always like a dream of mine, to be a wedding planner. And back then, you're talking about 2007, I was shooketh at the amount of money that people were spending on weddings. And I can't imagine what it is right now. Lots of questions about Dottie, the Coati, how she is, where she is, all of that. She's here. She's great. She's good. We are crazy about her. I just don't show her and talk about her, because one of the things that will get the internet of flaming real fast is animal stuff. Controversy abounds around animal related things. And luckily, like farm and homestead stuff has gotten so popular that like sort of, you used to not be able to talk about that stuff either, right? Because it was like, oh my God, you're killing chickens for meat. Ah! And so that has gotten so popular that like homesteading and farming stuff has become very normative now and very mainstream. It's become very mainstream now. to talk about and share about. Over the years, I've discovered the boundaries for myself and for our family that I feel like I need, and I can usually tell pretty quickly if I start talking about something or share about something, whether or not that's a boundary I'm not going to cross anymore. And that was kind of it. The noise in the house. Help when silence is needed. Listen, it can get very, very, very noisy. Two things I would advise. One is to institute a quiet time in the afternoon. This is something I started doing by the time I had about 4 kids, I think was when I realized I must have this. So it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if you're a teenager or a baby. That obviously, like, you kind of want to coordinate the quiet time with babies' nap times. But the afternoon, everybody has to like go to their room, go lay down in their bed, read a book, flip through something. They can draw, but it has to be a quiet activity. No tablets, no phones, no television, nothing like that. It's a quiet activity, and it gives you as mom at least an hour. Quiet time in our house was anywhere from 1 to 2 hours of quiet time in the afternoon. And if you still need more quiet time than that, then I highly advise the noise canceling earbuds and hide in your closet, close the door for a few minutes, you know? Sometimes you just need a minute. When do you fit schedule in the 121 chats with kids to keep a strong line of communication? This is a great question because, as we all know, parenting evolves and changes over the years. And when you get to older kids, like all of the, the sort of hullabaloo of little kids and toddlers fades away. And then the way that you parent really changes, and it's so much more conversational. And we were just talking about this the other day because I was in the car with my sister's kid, her older kids and my older kids. And here's how I fit in conversations with my kids. One, in the evening after the littles go to bed, it is not uncommon to find my teenagers or older kids come flop down on my bed and want to talk. Or in the kitchen in the evening, my husband and I will stand, Ciara and I will stand in the kitchen and, I don't know, eat a snack or something, and you'll see the kids kind of like trickle in and they just want to start talking. And I that's what we do, right? Like, we engage in those conversations with them when they want to, because if you've ever tried to like really sit down and talk to a teenager when they don't have an interest in talking, it's not the easiest thing to do. Car rides. My girls know that like on long car rides, we are likely going to we might listen to like a podcast or a bit of an audio book or something like that that's somewhat educational and topical, and then we're going to talk about it. So when I'm in the car with my kids going places, I don't listen to a lot of music or other things. There's times for sure that we just need to like dance it out and listen to some music. But I really try to take those opportunities to talk with them, to ask them questions that will get them talking, and to really have that moment. It's not always one-on-one. The kids typically tend to come out here to the cabin and talk to me out here if they need to talk to me one-on-one. But it's usually maybe 2 kids, maybe 3 at most. So that's kind of how we fit that in. And I don't overthink it either. It's not, when I say fit that in, it's not like every day I go, well, how am I going to get to I just try to be intentional about leaving the space essentially for my kids to feel like they can come to me to talk. Someone asked, mixing chickens and ducks. They are pecking. Mixing chickens and ducks is very hard to do. I know some people do it, but there's a lot of issues there. You're dealing with animals that deal with each other differently. And if you have males, if you have a rooster or drakes, it's just a bad idea. So if you're dealing with all females, they're pecking. If you can not have them together, that's what I would do. It stinks, but that's just, for us, we were like, this is not worth the stress of trying to sort of make this happen, because it wouldn't happen naturally, right? Ducks and chickens wouldn't live together naturally. And so, in our barnyard, we've got animals that wouldn't live together naturally, but there's not issues. If there were issues, we would potentially separate. So I wish I could give you just do this and it'll be fine. But I've just found that if things with the homesteading and farming, if there's something going on with the animals that is causing me an extraordinary amount of stress, I'm just going to fix it and take care of that problem so that it doesn't. If it becomes a problem and a stress that's not necessary, then I'm just going to do whatever I need to do to fix that problem. Hopefully that makes sense. Did you ever have a 9-to-5 job outside the home? I did for a few. I mean, I've had a lot of jobs. Now, once I had kids, not once I had kids, because my priority for myself was I knew that I wanted to be home. I wanted to raise my children. You couldn't have pried my babies out of my cold dead fingers. So I did everything I could to avoid having to go back to a 9-to-5 job and having to put them in daycare or whatever, such as running my own home daycare and other things in order to be able to stay home with them. But prior to that, yes, I've done a lot of things. Honestly, I've done a lot of things. But the job I had right before I got pregnant with Kennedy was I worked at a engineering firm in Portland, Oregon, writing marketing proposals. That was God led me to that job. It was the perfect job at the time that I needed it. And it was one where I started out as a temporary receptionist and worked my way up by working hard, showing that I was intelligent and that I was willing to work really, really hard, and working for a small company, a small business that the owner was in every day and able to see that kind of thing. Like, it really allowed me to move up in the company. I don't know how possible that is anymore, but I loved that job, and I loved the people that I worked with so much. So much. I loved that job. It was a godsend. It was the perfect job at the right time when I really needed it. So yes, I have. Has CR chosen to step away from social media? Your channels really miss y'all's banter. I haven't asked him if he's chosen to step away. He was never a super consistent poster on social media or anything. I can tell you he's a consumer of Instagram stories. He's always sending them to me, or Instagram reels, to watch. He's always sending them to me to watch. I can't speak for his social media, but you will definitely see him in vlogs and videos from time to time, but not every video or anything like that. When are you getting Jersey cows? Over here waiting to live vicariously through you. I wish now, but not yet. We still have to kind of sort out pasture stuff. We've got a pasture that's kind of unusable because of the trees, and the ground there is just kind of washing away. It's just, we have a lot of irrigation issues and stuff to deal with, and that stuff is very, very expensive. Tree removal, laying down the pipes and stuff for a French drain, and all of that, that kind of stuff is just very, very expensive. So we need to be able to get that pasture usable before we can entertain getting a cow, though it is absolutely on my list. A lot of people asked any more animals. That's really the only thing that I would want to add anytime soon is a Jersey cow. No other farm animals or anything like that. The kids always joke about wanting a mini donkey and stuff, but at this point, it's not that we're at capacity, but mentally I am. So I'm trying not to add anything just, right now, just woo-saw a break. We moved here and we added a ton of animals very quickly. And now it's okay, let's just make sure we have a really good handle on everything, because I tell you what, there's one thing you can count on with animals and farm stuff is that animals are going to get sick, farm stuff is going to break, and it's all expensive. Have you watched the new Duggar documentary, and what did you think? I knew this question was going to come up because I've seen everybody and their mother talking about this Shiny Happy People documentary. So I've not watched it. I'm sure that I will. I've had a lot of projects going on behind the scenes, some exciting things that I've been working on that y'all will see and hear about very soon, but it's really taken up all of my bandwidth for other things. Part of the reason I haven't watched it yet is because I need to chill myself out and make sure that I'm not going in defensive. Not because that I'm defending the Duggars, calm yourself, but because I have already seen people villainizing homeschooling because of this documentary. It always bothers me, and I haven't seen it, so I don't know if this is true, but I know that the day that it came out, I started getting DMs, messages, questions, comments on my YouTube videos that were relating to things that nobody's ever asked me before, and on recent homeschooling content. Are you guys IBPL or whatever the name of that denomination is that the Duggars are? And I'm where did you come? Did you Google homeschooling? Did you search for homeschooling on YouTube? You found my channel, and because we homeschool, you assume that we must also be of the same religious group or whatever. Homeschooling for so many years was like synonymous in people's minds with, oh, you guys have a lot of kids, so are you Catholic? Are you Mormon? And homeschooling, it's like, people make all kinds of assumptions based on that. And in my mind, I'm like, y'all, it is 2023. Homeschooling grew by millions of people over the last few years, millions of homeschooling students. And there are everywhere from, yes, there are people who are very religious who homeschool for religious reasons. And then there are people who are totally secular, have no faith of any kind, but they homeschool because they too see the brokenness of the public education system, or for other more positive reasons they choose to homeschool. But there's so many people who homeschool that has absolutely nothing to do with the duggars. It just makes me a little bit crazy when people like something like this comes out, this kind of like documentary expose thing comes out, and then it becomes like, oh, well, everyone who has a lot of kids and homeschools must also be this. Nobody likes to have people say, well, because you're this and this, you must also be this and this, right? Nobody likes to have those kind of assumptions made. And I just think it can be very naive. The way that people approach it tends to be very condescending. It's not like a genuine curiosity. It's like, you guys are one of those weird homeschoolers, aren't you? You must believe in Bill Gothard's methods. I'm like, first of all, I don't even know who this cat is, okay? I know nothing about Bill Gothard, okay? I only know his name because everybody's talking about it right now. Like, it might as well be Scientology to me. I know nothing about it. And it's not that I don't care, because I do. And I know there's lots of people who grew up perhaps in a similar type belief system. And I'm not saying that these conversations aren't important, any of that. I just have an internal groan when this documentary comes out. And now I feel like I gotta like put on my armor and go out to defend homeschooling, which is just a very small piece of their whole belief system and the things that they did. It's like if they drove red cars and you were like, everybody who drives a red car, you must be part of Bill Gothard's cult because you guys all drive red cars. Just the overly broad assumptions, like what my husband makes about Subarus in Whole Foods parking lots. Those kinds of overly broad assumptions, So no, to answer the question, I have not seen the documentary. At some point, I'm sure that I will watch it. I paid attention to what was happening with the son's trial and all of that because, full disclosure, I used to love watching their show in the very beginning. Like when it first came out on TLC, I found it fascinating. I don't remember how old I was. I don't know. I can't remember. I probably had a kid or two. I can't even remember exactly when this was because my brain doesn't backtrack like that very well. I used to find it fascinating to watch just that how you would function with that many kids and stuff. And I thought it was cool, like the big house and everything. And to be quite frank, I was intrigued and drawn in to the juxtaposition of what you're used to seeing in reality TV and on television, and quite frankly, just the smut. And then what appeared to be a much more like wholesome type family, and that appealed to me that they, again, these are all claims, right? That it seemed to be like, oh, they value children and, shared a lot of similar values to me. So that was appealing. And I think it's just like, people get super into all of these reality shows and, all I've heard about is whoever these Vanderpump people are and whatever's going on with these people. I don't know. I couldn't pick them out of a lineup. But everybody and their dog is talking about somebody had an affair with somebody. And it's all right. It's the same thing. That's what happens with these reality TVs. It's just that this is on the other end of the spectrum. And I think it's so shocking to us because you expect bad behavior out of people who are like that. I don't know anything about these people. I'm not trying to talk bad about them, but we expect bad behavior out of some of these reality stars who seem to just make it their whole life is about just getting attention for themselves, good, bad, or otherwise. Versus, you kind of had these families that seemed like their values were more like, we're sharing our family not because we want the attention or the money, but because, we want to share about our way of life. And it seems more wholesome on its face, right? I think it just goes to show that it's all bad. I think it just goes to show that it doesn't matter, these sort of front-facing masks that people wear. are not always indicative of what is going on behind the scenes. And so when you find someone, and this is like advice I'm preaching to myself, okay? When you find someone that you enjoy following, when you whether it's on social media or on YouTube or whatever platforms you're on, or a TV show and stuff that you enjoy, just remember that someone somewhere is making a decision about what you're getting to see, whether it's the creator who's deciding, sort of an edited version of their life that we're sharing with people, or an executive who's perhaps editing a family or a situation to look a certain way. None of that is the actual full picture, and that we are not meant to put our faith and all of our admiration into other human beings who are flawed and sinners and broken people. We are all that, whether you are a Duggar or a Vanderpump. Doesn't matter which one of these that you are. We are all flawed and broken human beings. And so in some ways, I appreciate that it seems that some of these Vanderpump people don't claim perfection. I think that's also that really like makes us turn up our nose, is that you were claiming to be something that you were not in the end. And that is so egregious to us, right? It's so abhorrent to our senses that somebody would trick us for all these years. Now, lots of people weren't tricked, right? I mean, one of my best friends, back before any of this stuff came out, I had said something about watching that show, and she was like, I don't know, they just give me the creeps. And I was like, really? Oh, I think they're sweet. She was like, no, they just give me the creeps. And I remember thinking, I wonder why. Well, it turns out she was right. I didn't get the total creepiness vibe from it. I don't know, just more surface level, like wholesome, whatever. And again, like I think the sort of spinoff of that was the Bates family. And to my knowledge, they seem to be pretty well-adjusted folks, doing well in the world. I don't know. I don't keep up with the Kardashians or the Bates or the Duggars any longer. I also used to watch The Real Housewives of Orange County in the 2008 or whatever year that was, and I don't consume that kind of television anymore either. So I think like as a person, I've changed in that I kind of just feel like I don't consume any of that because none of it is real, and I'm well aware of that. Again, without having watched it, I want to be very careful about how much I actually say, because I have no idea what's actually in this documentary. I just know that it's causing a lot of conversation. It does make me sad for so many reasons. There's a lot that I see happening there that I'm just like, all of it makes me uncomfortable. All of it makes me uncomfortable. So I don't know. You guys tell me. Have you seen it? What did you think? Sound off in the comments. Please let me know. Is it worth my time? Is it a waste of my time to watch it? Because again, just because everybody's talking about it doesn't mean that I need to or should watch it. But y'all let me know. What do you think? Let's move on from shiny, happy people. Pizza or hamburger? Pizza almost always, except for that 2 nights ago, I had a hamburger that blew my mind. I don't normally like hamburgers because a lot of red meat tends to make my intestines not so happy. So I typically avoid hamburgers, but I had one from O'Charlie's, and it was their butter burger is what it's called. It's like melted cheese, and I think it's like a garlic butter sauce. I added bacon to it. Oh my gosh, it was so good. Oh, my mouth is watering even thinking about it right now. Oh, it was so good. So normally pizza, but if I have an option, I also really like that burger. Who's here? There's somebody pulling up. Who's here? What are they doing? What are your plans for your kitchen remodel? You guys, I had really wanted to get the kitchen remodel done before the summer because I didn't want to be trying to paint cabinets in the heat and humidity because that can make it very difficult for paint to stick to cabinets. Today it is exceptionally humid, although our temperatures have been a little bit lower. I've just had so many other things going on that I haven't gotten to the kitchen yet. I think it's also one of those projects that's so big that I'm a little bit scared to even take it on. Not so much the cabinet painting, but all the other stuff as well. Like I'm intimidated by it. So I've been like, okay, like commencing to start for like 6 months now. But hopefully soon, though, now I may have to wait till the fall. I don't know. I need to talk to my husband and see what he thinks. But painting those cabinets, since we're going to do that ourselves, I may have to wait because I need a place where I can take the cabinets out to paint them and have it not be too humid. So We'll see. How do you keep your kids engaged in homeschool? Do they protest doing work or say no at all? Okay, so I keep my kids engaged by so I've talked about this before, like year-round homeschooling and kind of like block scheduling so that you can take lots of breaks, so that you can do like school for 6 weeks and then take a week off, or whatever, right? School for 2 or 4 weeks and take 2 weeks. I mean, just whatever you want to do. I don't know that would equate to enough school days, but you know what I mean. It can be very, very flexible. I also try not to bog my kids down with a lot of busy work. I try, especially in the younger years, my main goal is to to guide them into loving learning. I don't want learning to feel like a chore or a task. I have really had this 180 with stuff with school. I think especially since 2020, and I just feel like the curtain has been pulled back on a lot of things, and it's made me realize how many things are just a sham to begin with, but then also what really matters for my kids in completing school and what they want to do after that. And the economy has changed so much that the idea that my kids would get through elementary, middle, and high school, they would get straight A's, and they would go to a really good college, and they would get a good job and have a good life, is really, quite honestly, not even a reasonable plan. That is almost like a pie in the sky dream for most people these days, to have A plus B equals C anymore. It just doesn't. And take off some of those parameters that the people around us will sort of make you think that you have to fit into. So obviously there's so much more to it than that, but it's really a matter of doing my very best to not overload my kids with busy work, to focus on the things that they really need to learn that are building blocks, that's sort of the foundation of the rest of it. I'm not a unschooler, though I have unschooling tendencies. I'm not an unschooler. But I do think that because I don't push a lot of formal education until a certain age, it also means that they're at an age where they can reasonably understand that you don't have a choice, that this is something that you have to do, this is a requirement. And I'm not above reminding my children that as their mother, there's rules and stuff that I must follow as a homeschooling parent, legally speaking. And so if they don't do that, then I get in trouble, and that ain't happening. So that's sort of a last resort, right? I'm not going to mom's going to go to jail. I mean, they protest, and depending on the reason for the protest will determine how I respond to it, right? Are they protesting just because they just don't feel like it today? Well, no, we always have to do things that we don't feel like. There's a lot of things I do every day that I don't feel like doing, but I have to. Or do they really need a mental break? And if that's the case, then I don't force it, right? Then, okay, let's take a break. Let's do something different. And it really does just require thinking outside the box a little bit and getting a little bit creative with things, and being willing to make mistakes and willing to try things, and almost defend your decision or not defend your decision, just ignore the people who are buzzing around asking questions. Well, why don't you do this? And what about this? Quite frankly, it's none ya business, right? I've gotten better at saying that although I don't have many people in my life anymore who would ever do that, but I certainly have those people online. So none ya business kind of things, right? Got to get good at saying that. We want to take a couples vacay. What's your favorite place for couples? Lauren asks. Well, Lauren, I mean, I've been a lot of places, but not always on vacations because of our adoptions and stuff. I've done quite a bit of traveling to different places. I would say it really depends on your budget, your passport status. Are you available to leave the country? Are you staying in the country? If you're staying in the country, I highly, highly recommend Charleston, South Carolina. It's basically my favorite place in the whole wide world. I love it so much. You can do everything from an Airbnb, Vrbo or whatever, or stay at some of the resort places on Mount Pleasant. There's a little resort place that we stayed at as a baby moon place. But if you are wanting to leave the country, then, again, we haven't done a lot of couples trips out of the country. We've gone to Mexico and we've stayed at the same place because we're creatures of habit like that. When we find a place that we know we can just go and relax. My tip would be, when you're looking for something like that, look for a adults only. Okay, anything you can do that's all inclusive and adults only, I think is an excellent choice if you are getting away as a couple. Because if you are anything like me, you go to a place where there's water anywhere in the vicinity, you're like Hawkeye on everyone's kids that are not yours. Okay, my kids are not with me, doesn't matter. I'm watching other people's kids. And I can't help it. It's the mom in me. I can't help it. So I try to go to places where there's not going to be children for me to worry about other people's kids. So yeah, that's kind of my advice. And then of course the all-inclusive, just because it just makes it so easy. You just get to go eat. You don't, and if you have a drink or whatever, like you don't have to think about it. It's included. I think that's really nice. And for us, vacations are almost always these days about just relaxation. There's times that we would want to do something fun and adventurous within it, but most of the time we just want to lay around like lizards and bake in the sun, like a gator on a hot street. Although, who am I kidding? I wear a ton of sunscreen and a giant hat, but you get the idea. Okay, we'll probably end on this question. What animal would you love to have if you could have any animal in the world, no restrictions? No, there's almost too many to choose from. But you saying any animal in the world, no restrictions, I assume that you also mean that it's not actually harmful to the animal for me to own it. We're living in a fantasy world right now, okay? Because monkeys are not always a good pet choice, okay? I'm well aware, but probably a monkey of some kind, a gorilla, an orangutan. You guys thought I was going to say like a capuchin or a spider monkey. No, like a gorilla or an orangutan. I am fascinated by gorillas. It's something that has like popped up for me in the last like 2 years. I think it started when I read Mama's Last Hug. And after reading Mama's Last Hug, I became very fascinated with these sort of large apes. And I don't know, I've become so interested in gorillas, and every time we go to the zoo and I just sit there and I watch them, and when they interact with you, it's just incredible. There's something so incredible, and I wish that like we could have a shared language that I could talk to them and ask them questions, because like I want to know so bad what's going on in here, because they just seem so incredibly smart. And it's just, even like if you watch like little videos on Reels, I'm sure on TikTok too, but on Reels and stuff of like the gorillas, like, tapping on the glass and like asking the person to like, show me your baby. Like the person at the zoo, like show me, and they're like, okay, like here's my baby. And the gorilla's like, oh, like they want to see your baby too. It's just like what we do. Like, let me see that baby. Show me your baby. I'm so fascinated by them and intrigued by them. Something about the very human-like hands and facial features and stuff that just, it just like blows my mind, and they're fascinating. So is that a safe pet? No. Is that something I would ever actually own? Absolutely not. But in another life, I would have loved to have like done like research or been, like, I don't know, like a Jane Goodall type or something. I think that would have been a really fun and fascinating use of my time and life. That's the other thing too that I also would have loved to have done, and maybe when all my kids are grown and out of the house, it's something I could start doing. But I love the idea of like doing some humanitarian type photography, basically traveling and being the photographer for capturing certain places and people and animals and things like that, things that aren't often seen by the general public, right? I don't know, just doing more of that kind of like travel photography of different cultures and places and animals and stuff, I think would be really a fascinating job, combining multiple things that I love and am interested in. So, okay, once again, we've made it down the rabbit hole of another long Q&A. Follow me on Instagram if you're not already, so you can submit your questions for the next one. If you were like, these questions sucked, this was boring, then go over to Instagram, follow me so you can submit better questions, okay? If that's how you feel, go over there and submit better questions for the next one. That's it for me today, y'all. I hope y'all are having a fantastical day, and I will see you guys again very soon.
yet.